So it's been an extraordinary day out in politics. It's been an extraordinary week. Let's try and make sense of it. I'm joined in studio now by Scheaffer Okore, by Joseph Simekha, and by Gabriel Mutuma, all our political commentators. Thank you for coming in tonight. We appreciate your time. I'm also joined from NTV Eldoret by Dr. Atwoli, and from NTV Mombasa by Abubakar Yusuf. Thank you all also for coming in tonight. Let me start with you, Scheaffer. What do you make of NASA One telling supporters not to go to work tomorrow, and then Raila Odinga saying, on Tuesday, I will tell you the way forward?
I think, first of all, he should have just let people go back and try and do what is normal, right? It's been a heavy, heavy last couple of days. People have died. People we are still not accepting that have died. Property has been lost. And, you know, it's hard to just tell people, don't go do what is normal to you.
The argument is because the streets are full of police.
Truth. We have seen places, parts of Nairobi, parts of Kisumu, where there's still military people or police, whatever. If these places are still as volatile as they look to us right now, you can stay home. But I think calling the entire nation to just sit at home and not go and do what is, you know, is a bit too outstretched. Plus, if he's addressing the nation on Tuesday, or if he's saying something on Tuesday, can we just wait for Tuesday to come and then he tells us what he wants? But allow people, wherever they are, those who want to continue doing what they feel is right, go on and do that.
Okay.
If you're in a place that is still volatile, a place that's still policed, that you still feel scared, stay home. I don't blame him for wanting to stay home. Okay. But I think it's up to the people to decide what they want to do.
Great. I saw Abubakar behind you there listening in. Abubakar, what do you make of this call asking supporters not to go to work on tomorrow and wait for direction on Tuesday?
I think two things, Larry. Number one, it is to deny the president-elect legitimacy, or the incoming government legitimacy, because if Raila endorses the results of the elections, then it will be a legitimate presidency, it will be a legitimate government that he's going to form. That is number one. So the strategy that he's adopting is to deny the government and the presidency legitimacy. Number two, I think he's still very bitter with what has happened, and he is invoking the sovereignty power under the Constitution. He wants the people to come out in protest so that the government is unable to function, and maybe bring it down via that window. So I think that is a strategy that the opposition has adopted.
Gabriel.
Thank you, Larry. I think, number one, we need to understand who Raila is talking to, who's Raila's audience at this point. And if we go by what the LSK has been able to tell us, that the areas that are, that have issues, one of them being, in Nairobi counties, you're looking at Kibera and Mathare. In other areas in Kisumu, you're looking, Homa Bay, Kisumu, those are the areas that have, Migori, those are the issues, the areas that have issues. So who is he talking directly to? Because, if you look at the common denominator, those are the areas. Then I question, is he talking to every Kenyan? Because you are denying, like our good friend who just joined us on TV is saying, you're looking at people who is agitated, or these are the spoils of what you would call anger to the fact that, this election did not go as he wanted it to go. So, number one, we must satisfy who is he talking to. And if he's talking to the people who are in these areas, who are in these particular regions, then you're looking at a lot of people who are going to get fired. Now, this is somebody who has stood as someone who wants the economy status of this country to thrive. He, in his manifesto, was quite eloquent in telling us, we are going to create jobs. You cannot be talking about creating jobs while the clarion call you're calling today is telling these people, stay away. If your boss makes it to work, Larry, and you fail to appear, you are fired. Then what?
Right.
Will you ask, is he coming to give you food? I mean, I think people need to get serious and need to understand this message. Okay. I do not think those who are going to be absent from work are going to get any reprieve from Raila Odinga, so they need to think.
Dr. Atwoli, who is he talking to, as Gabriel says? Is he talking to only his supporters, and what is the impact of them staying away from work?
Yeah, I think the first thing and the most important thing is that we must accept that Raila Odinga got almost half of the votes at the last election. So he has a base, and he has a huge base. So that is a base to whom he's talking. So it is important for us to appreciate that this is a serious matter, and that if the people he's talking to actually carry out his instructions, then there is potential for trouble in the country. The second thing I wanted to point out is that we cannot delegitimize protest. So it is constitutional that when you are unhappy with something that has happened, either by the government or by a constitutional body, you have a right to protest in whichever way you see fit. You just need to be peaceable and unarmed. So that should be taken care of. So Raila is talking to his base. They have a right to listen to him. They have a right to do whatever he tells them to do. But then obviously there will be consequences to this. Everybody takes those consequences at an individual level, and we wouldn't expect Raila to take responsibility for the consequences of individual action. So I'm expecting that tomorrow everybody will make a judgment call about whether they should go to work or not, based on the security situation and based on their own convictions. And then that when they make those decisions, that they will be ready to live with the consequences of those decisions.
Judgment call, and what are the consequences, Simekha, of people staying away from work tomorrow?
First of all, it's important to make it clear that he is talking to Kenyans, not just those who support him, not just his base, but to Kenyans. Second thing is that we cannot talk, and I would like to encourage all of us to think about this very critically and carefully. We cannot talk about returning to normalcy because it's not normal. What has happened is not normal. And you've got to think about this very critical. You cannot talk about creating jobs, economy, and so on when you have a nation whose fabric is completely torn. In his manifesto, actually, in the NASA manifesto, talks about first rebuilding the nation. And then you can begin to talk about brick and mortar issues. But if you are consumed with brick and mortar issues and you are putting that on a torn foundation, as a nation, you're not going to get anywhere.
But people have already missed almost a week of work. Starting Tuesday when they were voting, it's been...
To fix a nation calls for sacrifices. People, have you seen what has happened in Somalia? How many years?
Over 20 years, they haven't had a functioning government and not much of an economic...
Until they get it right, it will never be right. So 1 week is nothing. We have to be prepared to make sacrifices to fix the torn fabric of this nation. We can't keep pretending and saying peace, peace, peace and put this under the carpet. We need to open our ugly past. We need to open the ugly, hard facts of this nation, look at them together as a nation, fix that, and begin to live together as people who belong to one nation. When for example, you look at the compromise of institutions that are supposed to help us to achieve that, like the Electoral Commission, IEBC, it won't work. We won't build a nation. So we have to be prepared to make these sacrifices.
Abubakar and Dr. Atwoli, you can jump in at any time if you want to, but it's fascinating that you say that it takes as long as it needs to. Gabriel, do you agree?
Simekha, you know, I'm shocked that you can mention Kenya and Somalia in one sentence. You know, this is a country that has been in civil strife for 21 years. No development, nothing. For you to equate Kenya with Somalia, it's a disservice you're doing to the nation. And guess what? I am a Kenyan. Simekha, I am a Kenyan. And I know so many people who are Kenyans. They are not supporting what Raila is calling for. By the way, Anyang' Nyong'o, what has he said today?
The governor-elect of Kisumu asked the people to go on with their work.
Of course, go back to work. It is done. And if you are a criminal, if you do criminal acts, you will be, you know, subjected to the full wrath of the law. That is what I want to hear. As a Kenyan, I do not think Raila is speaking on my behalf.
Okay, Dr. Atwoli.
Unless you're telling me if my daughter had 530 million in her account, then probably we could be talking about
Dr. Atwoli, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we need to discuss the fundamental issues behind all this uproar. The fundamental issue is that we've had an election, we have a result, and there are disagreements about the outcome of that election. I think it is our responsibility as citizens and as media to ask those that are disputing the election to give us the evidence that there was a problem, and we deal with that problem. And if it is an institutional problem, we fix the institution. If it is a criminal problem, then we fix it using the criminal justice system. So what we are doing here now is that we are focusing on the symptoms of a problem. Raila and his call for people to boycott work tomorrow and to listen to him on Tuesday is a symptom of a problem. Unless we get to the root of that problem, we are really acting in vain. We are just talking and doing the usual Kenyan thing. So we need to, at this point, examine ourselves as a country and see what is the problem. And I think I know what the problem is. The problem is that we are a divided society. We are an unequal society. And whenever we go to elections, we think that we will use elections to cure this inequality. We think we can use the election to give everybody a chance to get to the national resources and to get to the instruments of power.
Right.
Unfortunately, it is demonstrated clearly that this is not going to happen. So we have to sit down and rethink how we distribute national resources. We have to sit down and rethink how we redistribute power, rather than expecting an election to solve all these problems. It's not going to happen.
I think the things I need to address. One, Raila telling people not to go to work, it becomes a choice of will I go to work or not. Right? It doesn't matter who he's talking to. I believe Raila, in his own capacity as a leader, as somebody who has been fundamental in the history of this country, can ask anybody not to do anything. It is upon that person to do that thing or not, right? We need to get that very clear. Number two, when you say somebody who does not do what is supposed to be done will be met by the full force of the law, I need us to understand something. Statements like this cannot be uttered in this country at this moment, in the volatility that we exist, and be left out for interpretation. There is a 6-month-old baby in Kisumu right now, struggling for her life. This girl or this baby was not a criminal. This girl or this child was not out in the streets, but they're in a hospital fighting for their life, out of consequences of people not accepting or not being allowed to express their anger equally as the same way people were allowed to express their satisfaction with the fact that Uhuru was re-elected. I need us to be open about these things. We cannot talk simply about life and behave like it is okay for some people to be in the streets shouting, chanting, and some people are not allowed to sing and shout and cry when they feel pain. If this country is for all of us, rules must apply. I do not understand how we are using the term criminal right now so easily, so casually, to completely allow people to be shot dead. We are not that country.
Have we first of all agreed on the Article 37 of our Constitution? And I agree with Millie Odhiambo, where she says that you have the freedom to picket and demonstrate.
Yes.
Albeit the fact, the two things that they are leaving out is unarmed.
Peaceably and unarmed.
And peaceful.
Have you ever been in a demonstration in this country?
I have.
And what
But you see, what LSK have said, there usually is the element of people using that opportunistic. For instance, in Mathare yesterday, let me say yesterday because today I heard everything was okay. Yesterday, it was nothing going on but looting of shops. All right? So anytime, Scheaffer, and I want you to get me right on this one. When you talk about peaceful and unarmed, the minute you hold, whether it's a simi, whether it's a rungu, whether it's a stone, you actually negate the very Constitution. And then the other thing, don't think. And I also support you in what you're saying. But mine cannot be, hang on a minute.
You cannot use a rungu as a reason why a police officer who is trained to be able to disarm somebody, shooting them.
And I agree.
You are trained to police humans, you're not policing
and there should be ways to de-escalate situations like that without shooting them dead, right?
But also, let's remember where we are coming from. Let's remember where you are coming from, Shira. Do you remember in Homa Bay? The policemen who had gone, I don't know what they had gone to do. They were not in uniform. They came out of a bus and they were murdered. So let us all remember, let's remember that these policemen are our family. They are not outsiders, okay? So the minute you take up an arm and expect the policeman to be there and just talk with you one-on-one, when you know very well you have gone against the very Constitution that allows you to demonstrate and picket, who is fooling who? So all I'm saying is this.
The Constitution does not allow a police officer to shoot somebody.
Neither does it allow you. Neither does it allow you.
Arrest.
Everybody, listen, Abubakar, you're a lawyer, because the disagreement, Abubakar, is about that peaceably and unarmed bit. As long as Kenyans demonstrate peaceably and unarmed, the Constitution allows them to do so. However, there's also been moments when people were demonstrating peacefully and then police started to suppress them in violent means, and then that's when the situations kind of escalate from there. So how to handle this is becoming dicey.
Yeah, Larry, I think the police are equipped once a group of people decide to exercise that right at Article 37, then it is up to the police to monitor how they picket, how they demonstrate. If there's anyone who is carrying a weapon, he can be immediately arrested and you know, let the law take its course. So you cannot stop people from demonstrating on the grounds that there is a possibility they will be carrying up arms. Once they carry up arms, it's up to the police to arrest them and take them to court. So I think what we need at the moment, Larry, the situation is volatile. We need a locally mediation team. In the past, we used to have the religious leaders. So I think it is time now for religious leaders to intervene, call for these two leaders, talk to them, so that they can take the legal avenue that are open to them.
All right.
There is the court process. There is still other processes within the law that both the government and the opposition can take without violence.
So the 12th Parliament has not even started, Dr. Okore, but Jubilee is already gloating about the tyranny of numbers reloaded. I wonder what this feels like in terms of being magnanimous in victory.
Yeah. I think this is part of the problem with Kenyan politics, that politicians think control of parliament means complete annihilation of your opponents and destruction of anything your opponents stand for. These are our elected leaders. They should be thinking about what is in the best interest of this country. Starting your first item in parliament as being the ejection of a constitutional office holder for things that some of us consider to be trivial or for actually doing his job, I think that is terrible and it is sad. And many Kenyans would be frightened to hear the ruling party speaking like this because we don't know what else they're going to do. And if they're going to start tampering with the Constitution and constitutional office holders, this makes Raila's fears and anger legitimate. Because he feels like if he loses this election, then everything that he stands for is going to be trashed.
Right.
And the people who support him are going to suffer going forward. I don't think that is a good way to start the legislative agenda of the coming parliament.
Simekha, what do you think of Duale gloating about the tyranny of numbers getting even stronger?
It's pretty much what Atwoli is saying. And know that when you block, whether you are a minority or majority, but you have the power to block legitimate ways for prosecuting interests in society, people begin to look for alternatives. You want to gloat and say that we will stop you in parliament, stop you at the executive, use the police, use the military. Come on, people look for alternatives. People have to find other ways. And the way a democracy should function is for you to enable these institutions serve the purpose for which they're created, and that is prosecuting interests in society. But if you think that they must only serve your interests, those whose interests they don't serve must look for ways, because it becomes an existential struggle. And I must add in here, Larry, that, and I want to make this clear, that this narrative of Luonization of the problem we have in this country is extremely unfortunate. That you see people whom you think are intelligent, and they still push forward this narrative that is about Luos. It's not about Luo. Well, the affected areas are not just what are being mentioned here. I come from Western Kenya, from Luyaland, where it's totally affected. I'm not Luo. And we are not Luos. But we feel affected and we are unhappy. So this thing is extremely unfortunate. The Luonization of the problem in this country is what is going to spark even worse problems in the country.
Mutuma.
You see, let me first comment with what, on what Duale has said. And on this one, to an extent, I'll agree with what Simekha is saying. At the end of the day, something called sobriety must suffice. And apart from that, it should not actually be, automatically taken that all the members of parliament and those that are in the Senate will obviously agree with the narrative of, what you call, balkanizing, and saying this is the way we are going to go, and almost more like pushing, a throttle to say this is the direction we are taking.
Because he says they're going to try and remove the Auditor General one more time.
Yeah, let's not think that he will take their brains with them. At the end of the day, they'll also sit down and read the bill and see, is this the right direction? Now, as a party, they so choose to. That's the price of our democracy, and we should not run away from that. If that is what is going to be put in question, then so be it. But coming to the issue that Simekha is talking about, balkanizing a community, I do not think that is where people are looking at, and I'll tell you why. If I am to say what I've witnessed and what I have seen, it will only go to show you that other communities that were within the NASA fraternity have started to move on. Why are they moving on? Probably they are saying, yes, there is an issue, but there is a forum that these grievances can be heard. That is exactly what even the international community, the international observers said.
Raila's statement in Kibera today had mostly Luo MPs.
You actually can say that, because if I say it, Simekha will think I'm actually attacking him. But the fact of the matter is, they were ODM.
They were mostly ODM MPs.
In fact, they were ODM MPs. I didn't see a NASA. I did not see, the breakaway NASA. And I think probably for a good reason. They've stayed away. Do not forget, 2007 started the same way we've started this. And probably, who might be looking into this lens? ICC probably, and everybody wants, you know what, I don't want a stake in it.
Larry, it's dangerous to accept what Gabriel is saying.
Larry is the one who said it.
No. What you said, that other communities have accepted.
That other communities are running away from NASA bit by bit, that's what he says.
I haven't accepted. Let's not talk about communities. Let's talk about Kenyans. Raila's support is across the nation. And what he's pushing for is not about himself, just as he said there. It's about you, yourself, myself, hopefully even Gabriel and yourself, and Atwoli here. So when you begin to frame it in those pigeonholes, that is about other communities have accepted. What have they accepted? When I see an injustice, I have a duty to resist.
All right. I want to jump to Dr. Atwoli real quick, because I want to go to Abubakar Mombasa. But Atwoli, yes, go for it first, yes.
Yeah. I'm very, very scared, Larry, when we start talking about this conflict and talking about the Luo as the only people who have not accepted and who are causing chaos. I'm very afraid, because genocide begins like this. First of all, we demonize a community or a group of people because of their ethnic identity. Next, we make them less than human, and then we make it okay to kill them and to destroy them. This is dangerous. We need to focus on the problem, and the problem is that Kenyans do not think that you will have a fair shot at leadership or at power except through elections. And when that fails, Kenyans feel cheated, and Kenyans start to feel like they need to look for alternatives. All right. That is where the problem is. Okay. And as long as you Luonize it, as somebody has said, then we are starting off on a slippery slope.
Scheaffer.
I agree. So many things to say. First of all, tyranny of numbers has increased, as Dwele has said. Interesting. I wonder, because, we don't seem to understand what he's saying, which is very plain and clear. This is our parliament, this is our government, this is what we will do with what we want to do with it, And the fact that they're going after Ouko is to me, in multiple ways, just evidence of, we don't care. We need to get rid of people who keep us in check. How many times has this government had issues with Ouko?
And especially when they are Luo.
Exactly. How many times has this... No, let's be honest. How many times has this government had issues with Ouko? And it's because Ouko has been here telling us about what? There is misappropriation of funds, missing money, which I don't understand how money misses. It's not a human being that walks out of your wallet and goes somewhere. Ouko has been here telling us there is money being lost, there is misappropriation of funds. Even in the president's office, itself, he said there's money that can be located to certain things that are not supposed to be, that we're spending more money for biscuits and luncheons that are not supposed to be. We have a problem with somebody who wants us to work. I worry about that. Number two, when we talk about moving on, Gabriel, people cannot move on easily as you think. There are people that are affected by what is going on in this country directly. And those are people who can't move on. These are people who have lost lives, have lost property. There are people who are affected by this indirectly. These are people who are fighting, not for Raila, by the way. I am not fighting the NASA fight because I support Raila or the NASA fraternity. I am fighting for it because I want that the next time I queue, my vote matters. I question the process. I question credibility. I question why it is so easy for us to move from ballot to bullets, and it is acceptable. And nobody wants to take responsibility for that. When a police officer shoots somebody, they're getting orders from somewhere. I would never order a police officer, hey, go and shoot Larry, and they would actually listen to me. There must be somebody they're listening to. Who is this person? Do we need to know this? Do we need to ask certain questions? Do we need to ask this? What is going to be done? Compensation and reparations around issues of loss of life cannot even be done, because you cannot resurrect a dead person. So when we talk about the issue issues of this country now, I repeat, they are heavy. When we deal with them, let's a little bit be more sensitive.
All right, Abubakar, I wonder, this statement from Raila Odinga, if you can bring up that graphic again, where he says it's not about me, it's not about Raila Odinga, because I will not be a candidate again, but he says something that Scheaffer is alluding to here, that next time people queue for hours to go to vote, they want to feel that their view is respected. There it is. We just want Kenyans to know what happened, what the whole world is not understanding is happening. Your reaction to that?
Yeah, I think what Honorable Raila Odinga is trying to tell Kenyans and the world at large is that legitimacy of elections is very vital. Whenever there are grievances, then I think processes must be put in place to address those issues to the satisfaction of the people of Kenya. That is what he's saying. We know we are now almost divided in equal between the government and the opposition. We cannot always have disputes after elections. We need to come together. We formulate a way that will put every leader and politician in a situation where once the elections, they have confidence in IEBC, they have confidence in the process, and they accept the results for the sake of the country. So I think that is a message that Honorable Raila Odinga is saying.
Okay.
And this is why I emphasize that currently what we need is not political arrogance. What we need is sober minds. We sit down and we chat our way out of this problem.
Okay, Kofi Annan has sent a statement, and Kofi Annan's statement is important because Kofi Annan mediated the last time in the 2007-2008 post-election violence. And this is the Kofi Annan statement, partly says, I congratulate President Uhuru Kenyatta on his re-election and his victory speech in which he reached out to his rival and all Kenyans to reconcile and embrace peace. Can we bring up the graphic, guys? I urge him to pursue these efforts to bring together all elements of Kenyan society to move the country forward. That is the part of the statement from Kofi Annan. He goes on to say, I commend the leader of opposition, Raila Odinga, for the peaceful electoral campaign that he led. He has been a courageous defender of democracy, so I urge him now to pursue his concerns over the electoral outcome through the due process of law and to put the interests of the nation first, that he has patriotically done on the past occasions. And I join Kenyans in mourning those who have already died over this election. I sincerely hope there will be no more. Peace, stability, and prosperity depend on the political leaders of Kenya. They should be careful with their rhetoric and actions in this tense atmosphere, and I ask them to ask responsibly. Simekha, Kofi Annan is saying, Raila, if he's got concerns, he should go to court.
We know that we had problems in 2013 elections, and then it was called, went to court. We know about the technicalities that the Supreme Court used to knock out a very serious case. So, as I've said before, the moment you make it difficult for us to pass, for anyone, for us I mean any Kenyan, to prosecute what they feel is at stake for them through legitimate, constitutional and other institutions of governance, we have to find alternatives. And these alternatives, by the way, are provided for in the Constitution. The sovereign right of this nation is vested in its citizens, and they can exercise it either directly or through their elected leaders. When the elected leaders fail them, when institutions of state fail citizens, citizens themselves don't lose their sovereignty. They can exercise their sovereignty and recreate the state.
If NASA has genuine concerns about how this election was done or whatever malpractices, then isn't that the place for the court to determine that? So present the evidence in court and then the courts will determine.
Well, when you have a court whose decisions you can almost predict, when you have a court that is so easily intimidated, a judiciary actually I should be saying, not a court, that is so easily intimidated by the president. You heard the president shouting at courts because they've made decisions against the government in cases involving the IEBC. And immediately after that, you have, including actually Justice Odunga, making a finding against IEBC, but not granting what the opposition has asked for. You know that these are people who have already coiled because the president has threatened them. So when we live in that kind of state, there's no faith there's no trust that you can go to the judiciary of the Republic of Kenya with that kind of dispute and you get justice.
The reason why this is complicated, Scheaffer, is because if they're not going to court, then they likely, some people say, might call for mass action. And mass action traditionally in Kenya leads to violence.
Yeah, which we are all against. Which I do not condone. I do not condone anybody risking their life for politics. Politics should not, elections should not be a matter of life and death. I believe there's a way this can be done. I would love to hear the plan for NASA, what they are planning for this country, so that people can be able to decide, okay, is this the legal way we want to go, this which other way? Because right now we are assuming that they are not entirely going to go to court. What if they woke up?
They have ruled out going to court. They said they're not going back there again.
I hope that wherever they are going, it is not to endanger anybody's life, because that is also not what I am about. I support the idea that they want to seek address and seek independent address, which all of us can look back and say, okay, fine, you know what, Raila lost and this is why he lost, and he lost fairly. I think that is all what we want, because I also would love to know, is it really true that the numbers were tampered with? Is it really true that the allegations that came through as the results were trickling in, are these all things true? That the computer was continuously just pouring in numbers, are these things true? We would love to know that, because the only way we talk about we start rebuilding a nation, apart from the fact that we need to heal, because that's another story, is just realizing the truth behind the fact that we don't trust each other, we don't trust institutions. Our institutions are made of human beings, like you said, compromised people. I would love to hear what their plan is, and whatever Raila is going to say on Tuesday, I hope addresses that, and I hope it leads people to where this redress is going to come from. I hope that happens.
Well, Larry, number one, I do not think the redress that we are talking about will be found in mass actions and on the streets. I'll agree with Scheaffer on that one. That has to be in a very confined parenthesis of what you'd call a court of law. It does not matter that. And that's why everybody is actually pointing NASA. And I'm not saying they are not aggrieved. I'm not saying they don't have points that probably are valid. Yeah. But the only institution that can deal with it are the courts of law. So if they know for sure what they have is credible, that which can go in front of a court of law or in front of the judiciary, and they package it properly with facts, because I think that's where everything is getting eroded. Right. Personally seated here, you know, I voted as well. Most of us voted, and there are facts that personally I have that affirms my belief in that particular system. And it's not only me per se. You had other people who are stakeholders in this election, and that's why we had people like ELOG. We had the Tambo Mbeki-led commission. You had the Carter Center led by John Kerry. All these people, you know, we cannot say they were bent against an individual or a coalition. So there has to be something that makes sense for people to sit down and listen and say, hang on a minute, there are issues here. But if the exercise went well, albeit the fact that we had small, minute issues, and we've come and realized, hey, you know, we all agree that there was an element of credibility, and that has passed the threshold of this country calling this a peaceful and credible election. It is where we are today. And if you have any grievances, we are given a forum where those grievances can actually be heard and determined. Let us use that channel.
Dr. Atwoli, without the court of law option, going to the Supreme Court and an election petition and challenging the outcome of this result, what is Raila Odinga likely to say Tuesday, or what options, legal options, are available to him when he gives this court ways forward on Tuesday?
I think in this country, from a constitutional perspective, there's no other way of putting anyone in State House other than as laid down in the Constitution and in the process of law. And that is what is making many of us observers a bit jittery, because we do not understand what the NASA plan is. At the moment, all the information that is out in the public domain, in my view, there is insufficient information to help us arrive at a conclusion that the election was stolen. And if this information is there and it is credible, the only forum where this information can be tested is in a court of law, in the Supreme Court. So if they do not take it to the Supreme Court, then we have no forum in which to test the strength of the evidence. And so I would urge, as other people have done, that they collect enough evidence, present it to the Supreme Court, and convince the Supreme Court and the rest of us that the election was illegitimate.
Okay.
Anything else short of that, might cause a bit of trouble, it will cause upheaval, but I do not see it placing somebody in State House through other mechanisms other than those that are provided for in law.
We've also got a statement today out of Boris Johnson, the British Foreign Secretary. He is talking about the Kenyan election. He said the United Kingdom warmly congratulates President Uhuru Kenyatta on his re-election. We commend the people of Kenya for their commitment to democracy and salute those who worked tirelessly and courageously towards holding credible elections, often in difficult circumstances. Boris Johnson goes on to say, in the spirit of President Kenyatta's words yesterday, now is the time for Kenyans to work together in peace to build a nation and forge their shared future. We join the Kenyan people in mourning those who have died, calling on those with influence to exercise restraint at this difficult time to ensure calm and to honor the Kenyans who turned out in such number to vote to determine the future. That is just one of the many other statements coming out today, including from the German government and many others. They're congratulating President Kenyatta, calling for peace, and many of them also asking Raila Odinga if he's got concerns to go to court. I need to talk about this, though. James Orengo, who's the NASA Deputy Chief Agent, Senator for the great county of Siaya, told NASA supporters to boycott NTV, to boycott the Daily Nation. Scheaffer, what do you think? Because we're not telling the truth. He said this when he was live on NTV, the only station that was covering that live.
Okay, two things. One, I don't know the problem Orengo has with you guys, or with NTV. Secondly, there's a concern. There was a concern that was raised earlier when the announcement of the re-election of the president came and people were celebrating. And most media stations broke Kenya down to two particular areas, Eldoret and Gatundu. During this time, there was the other Kenya that was not happy with this. And it was at night, right? All the evils that we keep talking about, this country is in a heavy place, was happening during this time. They complained, why is the media not here showing Kenyans that some of us have also aggrieved, some of us are also not feeling the happiness.
Right.
We're feeling all these things.
So not everybody was celebrating on Friday
So not
night.
everybody was celebrating. And they wondered why theirs was not as important as the happy people. That is the only thing I would get that would have a problem. And that is not with NTV, that is with all media stations.
Because NTV,
right?
I was here on Friday night at 12:30 a.m. with Smriti Vidyarthi covering the protest and speaking to our people in Kisumu and in Mohoma Bay and in Migori. We were the first to go on air to cover this protest, and we stayed live until well past midnight. On Saturday, we had our people in harm's way yesterday, in Mathare, in Huruma, in Kisumu, all of them live covering this. I was asking Dr. Fred Matiang'i questions about the use of live bullets at the press conference, so much so that he moved on. He said, next, I don't want to hear these questions. So it's surprising that NASA and James Orengo would say, we're not covering them.
Yeah, that's why I wonder what's the issue.
It's not just about covering. It's not just covering NASA leaders. I think it's objectively covering what is happening in this country. Are not just limited to the violence and the killings that are going on, but from before the elections, during the elections, and after the elections. I'll give you an example, and for me, it shouldn't be limited to the nation media group, and it shouldn't be about. If everyone should exercise their own conscience and determine what they want to do. I will tell you a very personal story that I've stopped buying newspapers because I'm very unhappy with the local media. I'm hardly, watching local television stations. Because you have things happening, very graphic things happening in this country, and you're showing cartoons and you're showing completely irrelevant things. You have something seemingly, even if you don't have the evidence yet, something seemingly going terribly wrong during the transmission of results, and instead of the media investigating as part of their primary role, they're asking NASA, give us the evidence. How lazy? It's part of the role of the media, not just the nation, to go out and investigate for the sake of, not for NASA, not for Jubilee, but for the citizens and their viewers and their readers.
We have asked and we have, for instance, demanded from Dr. Fred Matiang'i. You say there are no live bullets being used. Our reporters are reporting otherwise. We've gone to mortuaries where we've seen bodies that have bullet wounds. And so if we say NASA says 100 people have been killed, show us the evidence. What is wrong with that? Because we ask tough questions of everybody involved, not just NASA, of the government, of all the political actors here. And by the way, a week before the election, Raphael Tuju was sitting where you sat, and he said, we are pro-NASA. He thought we covered NASA more than we covered Jubilee. So it's surprising that we have this coming from all sides, Gabriel.
Larry, you see, that's the price that you get to pay. And the problem that I see here is truth and facts. Majority of politicians don't like that. But truth will always remain to be truth. Whether you subject it to the lowest 0 degrees or the highest of boiling points, It is constant. It will not change. Those words were actually very unfortunate to be spoken by somebody like Orengo. Orengo is actually a very senior lawyer in this country. And virtue of that, he is, you know, an advisor to Raila Odinga, somebody who fought not only for the democracies, the democratic space that we enjoy, but also for the freedoms that you people enjoy, the freedom of press. So it is double speak when you go back to the same people and you castigate them for covering something or for asking questions. You have a right to question and demand answers. You are saying 1, 2, 3. You are saying it was stolen. Like, for instance, the election. You are saying this was transmitted like this. Show us the proof. Show us the evidence. Because, Larry, you, again, do not want to look funny in front of your viewers, reporting things that are, you know, are not making sense. There are so many people who are informed and knowledgeable, and they want to see balance and things that make sense. So when somebody puts you to task to say, show me the evidence, you should not jump 20 feet high, you know, just show the evidence. It is as simple as that.
So one of the cardinal rules of journalism is that in God we trust, for everyone else we verify. So just because somebody says something, we don't take it that that's the gospel truth, and that's why we do what we do. Otherwise, people would tell us all manner of things that we go on the air with them, would print them. We don't do that. And Dr. Atwoli, you write for us, so maybe you might have fewer readers after James Orengo's call. But it's fascinating that he's calling for a boycott of both NTV and the Daily Nation, and he said this while live on NTV. I think that was a great big irony this afternoon.
Yeah, I think, you know, there's a perception in this country that media houses are owned by individuals from certain, you know, ethno-political formations. But I think at the end of the day, the statement made today stems from a misunderstanding of the role of the media. You know, if you're a media house and you're reporting things and you are being attacked by politicians from all corners, then you must be doing something right. Because the media is supposed to be providing an alternative view to what the politicians are saying. And if you're doing that, you're going to displease very many people, and that's a good thing for a media house to do. So when Orengo spoke, I understood it from the point of view that this was in the heat of the moment. He had seen something on NTV or had read something in the Nation newspaper, and he was not happy. And in the heat of the moment, he told people, you know, stop reading this stupid newspaper, stop watching this television station. But at the end of the day, the media must do its job, must provide an alternative view. When the politicians say this and on the other, the media provides a third side and says, no, from what we are seeing, things are different.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's a good thing to have politicians attacking you. It's a good thing. It means you're doing something right.
It's a good thing from a fairness and balance perspective. It might be so, but what happens in this instance is that it puts our people in danger. Because they go out there to Kibera, they go to Mathare to cover, and they're wearing NTV branded stuff, or they have the NTV mic, and then they might get attacked. Their lives might be in danger. So it's not just about whether they should consume it or not, but it does put our lives at risk, and that's something that a politician should be responsible about.
I agree with you that it does put people at risk, and politicians need to be careful about it. I would expect and hope that in the coming days, Orengo and team will tone down and find a way of expressing their displeasure in a more civil manner without threatening journalists and without putting journalists at risk. I agree with you that there's no need to put journalists in danger. But it is okay to say media houses are biased. It's okay to say all that because politicians expect you to report positive things about them. And when you don't, they will accuse you of bias. But they shouldn't put people at risk with statements, you know, that you know, incite people against individuals.
Incidentally, kind of a backstory on this is that part of the disquiet, at least we see about NTV, is because I was at both the Dr. Fred Matiang'i press conference yesterday and the NASA press conference yesterday, and somebody made up an entire conversation I'm supposed to have had with James Orengo, which did not happen. And this thing was live streamed on television, and I shared a link not to our own press conference, but what NASA itself live streamed. And I said, this conversation didn't happen. You can watch this video. And nobody wants facts in this case. They want to believe what is an inconvenient lie than a convenient truth.
Larry, that's what I was telling
so the role of fake news here is staggering.
Exactly. You have, and they are doing a disservice in this country. You saw people actually pushing, disseminating images that were taken in other countries, and that they are, you know,
some are several years old.
Several years old. But you see, again, you come back to the to the fact that we are becoming less human when we are aggravated, instead of rising up and asking, how do we move from here? You see, when you are going to report a fact, and somebody does not want it to be a fact, just because it does not conform to his or her desires, I think it's a disservice. And by the way, if it is actually more so if they are learned. We can understand if they are ignorant. We can understand if they are uninformed. But people who have gone to school, have serious academic degrees to their names, and yet they are still acting the way, you know, the uninformed are acting, we have a problem. By the way, I congratulate you. Report facts. Continue doing that.
That's the issue I had with statements just being made randomly and being left for people to just interpret.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, Scheaffer.
I think that's the same thing I was saying, that statements cannot just be randomly made. That's why I was wondering, what is the problem with Orengo and NTV? Because at that moment also, ironically, which made me giggle, you're on NTV Live and you're saying boycott NTV. You see, it doesn't make sense. If there's a problem, if there's a story or there's a reporting that maybe misquoted you or something, address that.
Or find clarification.
Or find clarification. I agree. But to say, okay, boycott NTV. I'm on NTV right now, but I'll be telling people, don't watch NTV, but it doesn't, honestly, it doesn't make sense.
All right, let's finish this conversation right now by trying to find the way forward, Abubakar. There's an impasse right now, kind of a disagreement between President Kenyatta, who has a big job in trying to unite the country, and then what are NASA's options? What do you think is the solution to this crisis we find ourselves in?
I think first President Kenyatta should actually demonstrate what he said when he was declared the president-elect. He should extend an arm to the opposition, to Raila Odinga. He should follow the advice of Francis Atwoli, visit Raila Odinga, talk to him, let that be on television so that people can see that there is no hard feelings between the president and the opposition leader. There should be other ways to bring these people together and demonstrate that despite their differences in political opinion, but we are still Kenyans, we are still brothers, and there is hope that we can sit down and chart our way forward out of this electoral problem. So I think that is the way forward. Raila Odinga should conform, should follow the legal avenues that are within his reach.
Dr. Atwoli, what is a way out of this crisis that Kenya finds itself in?
Yeah. I think there are several things that need to be done, and the greater responsibility lies with the President of the Republic. Firstly, he needs to arrange to have that meeting with his opponent and to really just listen to him and to talk and agree that Kenya is greater than both of them. But the second thing that he must do is to take the concerns of the NASA team seriously. And if I were in his position, I would agree to forming a team, an inquiry commission or whatever it is, to investigate this election and to come up with a binding report. And since we are so confident that the IEBC did a brilliant job and everything went very well, agreeing to a commission to investigate that and saying that if that commission determines that the election was hopelessly flawed, that we are willing to do another election in order to eliminate all doubt. And that if the team finds out that the election was clean and everything went well, then the NASA team would be in a position to accept that they lost and we move forward as a nation. There is no harm at all in establishing a team like that, in putting in place a process like that, that will engender national confidence in the institutions that we have and allow Kenyans to continue with their lives peacefully and in a coherent manner.
Okay, Simekha, how do you see the solution to this crisis?
Yeah, of course, NASA leaders should put out the analysis of the election results, you know, what I believe they've been doing, and I think Honorable Raila Odinga has promised that that will happen, so that the whole public, the entire public in the Republic of Kenya can see exactly what he's saying. So yes, that challenge of bring the evidence, I think that it should be put out so that in the court of public opinion, so that they can see what exactly NASA is saying before moving forward. And secondly, this should not be limited to an electoral dispute. It's a much deeper problem that with regards to participation in governance, with regards to inequality, and with regards to access and equal access to the system.
Right.
Which needs, therefore, something deeper than just an election. If this election had been credible as it could be, perhaps it would have given hope that, hold on a minute, perhaps there's a chance that we can prosecute our differences using the institutions and processes that we have.
Not, your view is not that this election was credible?
In my view, around the results, the rest of the process up to polling, to me, was pretty good, except for a few things to do with agents being denied access and so on.
Okay.
But the most difficult being the results.
All right.
And then finally, for the role of the media, if Gabriel and I, if I'm saying this is a table and he's saying this is a stool, I don't think you should keep asking me to give you evidence to show that it's a table. I like what Atwoli said.
No, that's a false equivalence, Simekha. That is not what we're saying here.
The alternative, having the alternative position means carry out your own independent investigation to establish whether this is a table or a stool. And then tell the public, not me, not him, but the public. Not those who are disagreeing, but the public.
Gabriel.
Simekha is right in one regard that, you know, when you come to finding out whether the system actually withstood the test of time, I think NASA must compile something that makes sense. Bring all the evidence that you have and write it, put it in a well-organized fashion and say, these are our concerns. And I believe, you know, any government or any person who is going to be an arbiter looking in will actually allow that. They had a sitting, let's call it out. They had a sitting with the international observers. They actually did not satisfy, you know, the answers that were actually brought forward. If they have that, you know, what you call the matters that they need addressed, I think that is another forum that they can look to get their grievances heard. Right. Having said that, let me finish by saying this. I think this country needs to move on. We need to get back to work. We need to have, you know, our kids, you know, visit where they want to visit, and everybody needs to get back to nation building. Let us not move in an area where we hold this nation hostage. I think it will be detrimental to the democracy that we have in this country.
And last but not least, Scheaffer, what is the way forward in your view?
I think way forward, the president-elect said clearly that he extends an arm of friendship to everybody. And I'm hoping that it wasn't an arms, because what we saw after that was arms. And we hope that that is not what he meant, because that is what was interpreted. I'm telling you because that's what's on the ground, Gabriel. I've also been on the ground. That is what people think, that how come you're telling me I extend an arm of friendship, and the next thing we're being met with is violence. That is what they interpreted that to be. So let me finish. Okay. This is my statement. Okay. Another thing that I hope can happen is that there can be a way in which NASA can be allowed to present whatever they want to present, like you said. If they have facts, put it on the table. If they have evidence people, or if they have people who want to give testimonies and whatever, let it be there, so that all of us can understand this is what went wrong. We voted peacefully. We all did this hoping that for the first time in our election, we're going to get it right, up until the results are going to be announced. Well, whatever happened, happened. We are seeking credibility. We are seeking justice, not just at the election, but at the fact that what happened after needs addressing. We cannot tell people we need to move on, we need our kids to go playing. Some people's kids have died, eh? Someone needs to be responsible about that. So my thing is,
the president said, because let's not dilute it. He said,
I'm not diluting
I reach out. Come, we work together.
Fantastic.
How does that change from being an arm of friendship
hours
to
later,
arms?
there are gunshots in Kisumu, in Migori, in Homa Bay. You cannot deny that. How do I tell Larry, I'm extending an arm of friendship, right? 2 minutes later, 5 minutes later, there are gunshots. Okay. How do you interpret that as the person who is being shot at?
All right, great. Let's leave it there. Incidentally, by the way, Dr. Atwoli, somebody wonders, Stephen Mushiri, did Lukoya Atwoli ask UK, meaning the president, to form a committee to investigate if he rigged the election? Is that what you're saying? No. That's what somebody appears to have taken from your statement.
This is what the opposition is asking. This is what the opposition is asking. They're saying they want a team to investigate. I mean, if I'm so confident that the election was clean, which many people are, then it wouldn't make a difference. Get people to investigate the entire election and come up and say, this is the integrity of this election. It was clean, it went well. There wouldn't be anything to fear.
Wonderful. Let's leave it there, guys. Bring up the 5 ways so I can thank everybody. Thank you for coming in, Joseph Simekha, Scheaffer Okore, Gabriel Mutuma, Dr. Lukoya Atwoli, and Abubakar Yusuf. All of you, appreciate your time. We hope we have another opportunity in the days ahead to